Welcome back to The Explainer. Today, we're exploring a very literal, frankly fatal take on heartbreak. When we talk about heartbreak, we're usually talking about the emotional sting, right? The tears, the heavy feeling in your chest. But what if that feeling wasn't just an emotion? What if it was a harsh, physical, biological reality? In this explainer, we're going to look at three very different animals where love and attachment are pushed to such an extreme that losing a partner literally becomes a matter of life and death. Let's get right into it.
So, can you actually die of a broken heart? It's a question that sounds like it belongs straight in a cheesy romance novel. As humans, we use this phrase poetically, mostly to describe intense emotional pain. But as you probably know, the natural world doesn't always deal in poetry. For some animals, dying of a broken heart is a fully documented fatal reality. Today, we are going to walk through three specific levels of how grief manifests in the animal kingdom, escalating from profound behavioral denial all the way to a complete biological shutdown.
Okay, let's dive into this. Level 1, behavioral denial. And our prime example here is the shingleback lizard.
The dynamic between these lizards is honestly incredible. Every single year, a pair of shingleback lizards will spend months living completely apart from each other. Yet somehow, against all odds, they always manage to find each other again in the middle of a massive, sprawling desert. It's like a giant puzzle, and they always find the right piece. Once they're reunited, that's it. They absolutely never leave each other's side. The male takes on this highly protective role, actively guarding the female from danger in an environment that is, let's face it, incredibly unforgiving. It's a bond of absolute, unwavering dedication.
But what happens when that bond is broken? Well, when a partner dies, the survivor exhibits a truly tragic level of denial. It just stays right by the partner's body. It doesn't move on. Instead, it constantly nudges the body with its nose, acting exactly as if it's just trying to wake its mate up from a nap. The survivor stops eating completely. It just refuses to leave, entirely ignoring any act of danger that might be right around them. The lizard is so deeply bonded that it actively risks its own survival, prioritizing a lost mate over its very own life.
Let's step it up to level 2 and see how this escalates. Level 2, emotional and social collapse. And here, we're looking at the mute swan. And this brilliantly illustrates the sheer desperation of that collapse. Since swans spend years searching for the perfect mate, a loss triggers a frantic reaction known as the bussing pose. If a mate dies, the survivor will constantly tug at its partner's body with its beak. It frantically tries to wake them up by swimming away and then charging right back in. And we're not just talking about a brief moment of confusion here. The swan will perform this exhausting, heartbreaking routine over and over, literally for hours, in a desperate attempt to bring their mate back.
Walking through the swan's tragic timeline is honestly pretty tough. It starts, as we just discussed, with those frantic waking attempts and that exhausting bussing pose. But eventually, physical reality sets in, and the swan reaches the next agonizing step, the stark realization that its mate is really gone forever. This triggers a state of extreme, overwhelming stress. From there, the swan completely shuts down socially. It quietly leaves the safety of its flock, finds a hidden, isolated spot, and just stops living. Within just a few months, the surviving swan dies. The sheer emotional weight of the loss physically overwhelms them.
But now, we are taking things to a whole other level. Level 3, neurological destruction. Enter the prairie vole.
For the prairie vole, love isn't just a bond. It's a literal chemical addiction. After their very first physical contact with a mate, the levels of oxytocin and dopamine in their brains absolutely skyrocket. This sudden chemical flood basically locks them onto that exact partner permanently. They don't just prefer their mate, they literally get addicted to them. It's a permanent alteration of their brain chemistry that essentially dictates their survival from that moment on. Think about what that actually means. Their physical well-being is now chemically tethered to the existence of another living creature.
Now, what's really fascinating here is the stark contrast between these two states. On the one hand, you have the mating brain. It's high-functioning, it's addicted, and it's happily flooded with all those crucial survival chemicals like oxytocin and dopamine. But then, look at the grieving brain. When the prairie vole loses its partner, it doesn't just get sad. The sudden absence of their mate and the massive immediate drop in those addiction chemicals literally causes severe brain damage. The withdrawal is so intense, so biochemically violent, that the actual physical structure of the brain suffers visible damage. The withdrawal is so incredibly severe that it triggers a chilling reality. As researchers have noted, their bodies start shutting down and they die shortly. It's a very clinical, cold description of a totally devastating biological event. The sudden absence of the mate leads to a complete systemic shutdown. That initial brain damage triggers a domino effect throughout the entire nervous system. Vital functions just drop,
The immune system plummets, and the vole's body simply ceases to function altogether. It's a profound, if morbid, testament to how deeply intertwined biology and attachment can actually be.
So, I want to leave you with this final thought. What is the true biological cost of love? We've seen how the shingleback lizard risks actual starvation through behavioral denial. We've watched the mute swan succumb to extreme stress and total social collapse. And we've seen the prairie vole suffer literal brain damage and a complete bodily shutdown. This whole journey paints a picture of attachment that carries a heavy, fatal weight in the natural world. It really makes you realize that connection is one of the most powerful forces on Earth, capable of sustaining life and, in its sudden absence, ending it entirely. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and I hope this deep dive leaves you with a completely new perspective on the true science of heartbreak.